We're in the village of Great Barton, which is a few miles outside Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. And this is the Church of the Holy Innocents. We've got a flint and brick wall here with no gate. We walk up into a gravel path and set back in this extensive churchyard, is this impressive church. We've got some more recent graves here. This one is somebody who died in 1944 and another person in 1946. Old graves here at the side of the graveyard, and one here with a railing around the plot. A lot of character. This old cross with the tree growing above it. The church is very impressive. Right in the middle of this remote spot in this village we find this extremely large church. Imposing, I think, is a good word to describe the impression it gives you. Sacred to the memory of Sophia, wife of Henry Denton. He was aged 31 years when he died in 1842. The centre of the churchyard has been left uncut and left to nature, really. A lovely old grave here with a cross on the top and plenty of patina in terms of moss, ivy, and growing over this group of graves there. This is a very picturesque scene, actually. Very, very beautiful. Headstones and all the spring vegetation growing up amongst them. Birds singing in the background. Over here we've got beautiful light standard in between two blossoming trees. The blossom is just starting to fall off in the wind. And this is a beautiful scene as well. Another scene that looks as if it's been staged almost in a Hollywood movie. That's just so dramatic, with the tree, the cross leaning, the iron work around the grave, the headstone falling on that side, the ivy growing. What a beautiful scene. We have another lights standard there, and a gravel path that leads to another part of the churchyard. The wind has picked up a bit and the trees are now blowing around, giving a lot more atmosphere, as if more was needed, because here we've got this beautiful scene. How beautiful can this be? Everywhere I turn, I come across a scene that's even more atmospheric and beautiful than the last.
Memory of Mary Elizabeth Phillips, wife of John Phillips, who died 1825, aged 23.
23 years old. Every time we go to a churchyard, at random we can find a grave that tells a story, or at least indicates that there's a story. When you see a grave of somebody of 23 years old, sadness is obviously part of the story, I suspect. Collection of old headstones with crosses and ivy growing. The sun's coming out to expose to us a beautiful wheelie bin. And here, at this part of the churchyard, which I suspect is a more recent extension, we've got a row after row of recent headstones, which shows that this churchyard is in current use and has been for some years. At this angle we can get a view of the size of the tower, which is very square, very large actually. And here in the graveyard, a very beautiful cross there, 3 that have fallen over. One of these beautiful ones here with sort of carving on it. That's lovely. And there's some posh ones here. This is, again, and I point this out many times, when people have graves and they have the iron railings around them, it makes them almost impossible to care for. So they tend to go back to nature, as this one has. This has been falling away, it's broken with age. And here we've got, it's a nice little corner here, we've got watering cans for watering the flowers and plants at the graves with a hose. That's lovely. You can see here the porch where there's brick on the buttress there and at the top, which is different to the rest of the church, which is stone and flint. And there again, this is this lovely pattern of a mixture of napped flint and stone, which gives the speckled effect. And we've got that stone and that napped flint. Absolutely fabulous. I mean, that's really terrific. And the effect that that's given on that flint wall is beautiful. What a fabulous tower. More graves here, sitting under a tree, looking beautiful. This one looks superb. Isabella Jane Hallam, the beloved wife of David Thompson, Great Barton, died May the 27th, 1917, aged 47 years. Also, Walter Hallam, the second son of David and Isabella, killed in action in France, May the 5th, 1917, aged 21 years and 9 months. In loving memory. You can't help but feel sad just looking at that. And here we've got an unusual stone cross, which has got wreaths in it, leaves carved into it, and yet more behind. Got a big door at the back of the tower, stained glass window, another window, and yet another window. And when we come round to the other side of this church, we've got an extensive part of the churchyard that just seems to fall away into the distance, with gravestone after gravestone. Absolutely beautiful. Here there's headstones under the tree, and the church. You can see here clearly the effect of the variation in flint and stone has to produce absolutely stunning looking wall of this church, and the arches over the windows. Little tower at the back. It's beautiful. Churchyard extends all around this church with headstones. There's some more recent ones over this side. Lovely bench that somebody has probably presented to the church here. You can sit here and reflect. At the far end of the churchyard there's a second entrance, and as soon as you come in you're greeted with this memorial to war dead. In the corner of the churchyard is an area that's bricked off into a more private graveyard that seems to be an area for the Bunbury family, who were obviously a prominent family of the area. There is actually a pub not far from here called the Bunbury Arms. So I guess this is where the family are buried. Quiet, peaceful spot, full of atmosphere. Sad the cross is broken off of that grave. We come back around to the porch again, and a very impressive entrance to this church, and the doors to this church porch are actually glazed. Another unusual feature in the area. The floor is the typical black and red tiles with stones seeped along both sides. Lots of notices and leaded plain glass on this side, and that side is just a plain wall with a wood ceiling roof. A visitor's book, which we shall sign. We find ourselves in a church that's quite vast and looks very busy. In fact, I think we'll go to the back and have a look and see what we've got. First thing we see here is the font, supported by columns, and a beautiful wooden top. Absolutely outstanding, with the cord that goes to the ceiling. A rather major stained glass window at the base of the tower, and a wooden ceiling up above.
Here resteth the sweet body of Francis dear and second son of John Knifet of Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, who slept in Christ the 30th day of July 1667.
If you look down the length of this church, we've got 3 aisles, and we've got 4 rows of pews. This is an extremely wide church with a very large selection of pews. Unlike most of the village churches that we found locally. There's an area here, delightful area here for children. Sort of Sunday school, I guess. That's beautiful. Look at that. It's absolutely charming. That's a memorial to the 1418 war. All different. Great Barton. Lovely. This is the memorial to the 1939-1945. Second World War. There's 2 big windows here. Leaded, plain glass, but each of them, being identical, have coloured panels in the top. The pews are set on a raised wooden plinth. We've got stone running down the full length of the church. We've got in memory of the Reverend Will Rushbrook, interesting, spelt without an E, minister of this parish, 19 years. He departed this life the 10th of January, 1762, aged 77 years. So I'm guessing he was part of the Rushbrook family that were in Rougham. On this side of the church there's 4 very, very impressive and substantial stained glass windows. With this one here, for example, it's got large areas of dark glass, so it's restricting the amount of light coming in. All the pews are beautifully carved, very heavy, dark wood, in excellent condition. This area, which is a small chapel area, has got the smaller stained glass window. That's a lovely, beautiful little area here. Candles here. And before we leave this area, maybe worth pointing out something that we've noticed.
Squire, son of John Phillips, Esquire of Pall Mall, for upwards of half a century surgeon to the royal household. He departed this life March the 30th, 1849, in the 60th year of his age.
It's an interesting memorial with some important history. In front of us here we find a sort of musical area, really. This is the organ with fabulous and massive pipes, beautifully painted, beautiful shape at the top. That's fabulous. I don't know how old this is. I'm wondering it's not as old as perhaps it looks, though it doesn't look old. And here is a much more modern piano. Now we've got an area where the ceiling is plastered, leading up to the altar. And a rather serious memorial here.
Sacred to the memory of Lieutenant General Sir Henry Edward Bunbury, Baronet, KCB, born May the 4th, 1778, died April 13th, 1860.
Well, he was obviously a very important person here, and very wealthy. To have a memorial of that immense size and beauty. It matches the windows. Lovely red carpet here in this area, covering this cream and black tiles. And the whole altar area is just super. On this side we've got a plain window, plain glass, leaded, with a few little coloured bits at the top. And on this side we've got a very delicate, unusual stained glass window with sections of dark colour. The stonework has been highlighted on the sides of the windows by the plastering of the walls, giving a very lovely effect. And it's lighter in here because of the ceiling being plastered and painted. Yet the light coming in is restricted by the dark stained glass window here at the top. Candles each side. Got a tiled floor here with quite an involved pattern on it. We're standing at the altar end and looking down the church. We can see the central aisle without the extensions at the side, and the windows up above giving in the light, but a gentle light, and it's a soft looking light in the church. So reflections down here. It's very atmospheric, very gentle looking, and that's the word I'm going to use to describe this church. Clean and gentle. I like the stone floor as well, as you walk down between the pews. This is a grand church for a grand wedding, I suspect. So we have one last look at this church. We can stand here. It's lovely and quiet, apart from me talking. Come through the glazed door of the porch and greeted with birds singing, sun shining. And frankly, it's almost as quiet out here as in the church. So this is the Church of the Holy Innocents. Actually, that's a good name to describe it. It's very innocent and quiet and lovely. And the wind's just blowing gently, and the blossoms coming across in the breeze in front of the church here. It's just very peaceful. Peaceful spot to be here, in the middle of Suffolk.